Sunday service. Here we are. It is, what the date is? It's the 16th. It's the 16th of November 25. And we are here just to see whether you want to jump in, have a chat, see what's going on. And we can kick some thoughts, some ideas about. We can share some stories. We can talk about what's going on in the news. And I will take your questions, your comments, your observations. Now, I did learn the other day, this is called AMA. I think that's correct. Ask me anything, right? That's what it's called, yeah? I believe that's what it's called. I don't really know, I've got to be honest. So if it is called Ask Me Anything, yeah, you can ask me stuff. And we can see how we go. Now, I'm trying, because I'm broadcasting on a platform at the moment to YouTube, Facebook, and Insta. But I can't get my Insta messages on this screen. So I don't know if I do that, whether or not I can see your messages. That's the interesting thing. If I hit this go live, do I go live on two separate channels? This is interesting. Who knows? I think that'll work. Let's see what happens. Anyway, good morning. Welcome. Hello. Hi. It's morning, afternoon. It's 20 to 2. It's 20 to 2 on a Sunday. It's later than you think, right? So jump in, say hello. What are we talking about today? Well, there's lots we can talk about. There's lots we can discuss. There's lots we can kick about. It seems to me that the UK is increasingly getting itself into. I mean, I don't know what the country's doing, and I don't know why the country's doing it. I do think that we have a bit of a difficulty with. How do I put this? We seem to have a political class, and again, I say this. Oh, sorry, Matt has just finished the chicken and veg soup. We seem to have a political class. Oh, sorry, Katz Hazard. Thank you for following me. Appreciate that. We seem to have a political class at the moment that, and I'm going to try and talk about this non-politically, right? And that's difficult. But as soon as you talk about politics, people kind of lose their shit slightly. By the way, there might be a small amount of swearing in this, so I say that just in case that's an issue for you, or you have people around that you don't want to hear the rude words. We seem to have a political class at the moment, regardless, hi Helen, regardless of what sort of politics you believe, right? Regardless of what you think is the right way to go about running the country, regardless of all these things, we seem to have a political class at the moment that doesn't understand the basics of cause and effect, that doesn't seem to actually get and focus and follow that if you do this, this will be the result. And you don't need to be an economist, you don't need to be an expert, you don't need to be a far right Tory or a hard lefty, right? This is a non-political thing. This is a sort of a common sense thing, right? You don't need to be super intelligent, you don't need to be educated to a certain level, you don't need to understand numbers or percentages or figures or taxes, just genuine awareness of life. We seem to have constantly now for some time a political class, the people that are in charge of our country, who seem to do things with absolutely no awareness of if you do this, this will happen. Let me give you some examples, right? If you say to people, and this goes back about 100 years, right? If you say to people about 100 years ago, when you can no longer pay for things and there's no private health and there's no support for you, you won't have somewhere to live, you won't have anything to eat, you won't be able to afford any sort of doctor's support, any medical support. When you say that to people, they're in a terrified and terrifying position. And that is where the country was 100 years ago. And so all of these benefits come in and the national health comes in, and we graduate, I feel, as a country, we graduate to a place where you are looked after when you get to a certain age, when you get to certain things that happen in your life. But all of these discussions and all of these situations need to be constantly tweaked and improved. And the one thing that this country appears to have done for a really long time is not rethink decisions that we made 100 years ago. So 100 years ago, the NHS rolls out. I'm using round terms. Forgive me if I've got the exact numbers right. 80 years? You get my point. This thing appears, right? And we'll go, this is amazing. We have benefits, right? So if you read something like The Ragged Trousered Philanthropist, Robert Trussell, amazing book. It's a big argument in favour of socialism, communism. It's a big argument in favour of, it's an anti-capitalist book. And it's written by a painter, an artist, a painter, sorry, I think it was a house painter about 100 years ago, Robert Trussell. Fascinating book, brilliant, really well told, great story, really thought-provoking. And you pretty much read it and cannot come to any other conclusion that this guy's right, capitalism, awful, dreadful, whatever else. But that was writing from his perspective in those times, pre-NHS, pre-benefits, pre-help, pre-support. We have in just a few generations gone to a completely opposite direction now. We've come to a place where you don't have to work, you don't have to pay for stuff, you don't even have to look after your own health. You don't even have to take preemptive care. You don't have to try and exercise, or you don't have to try and eat vaguely sensible food. You can eat what you want, drink what you want, smoke what you want. And there's an entire system and infrastructure to look after you. Platmat, thoughts on Liz Truss and Dominic Cummings' interviews on the MPs in the Commons being controlled by the UK civil service, and the fact MPs have no real power. Platmat, I'm not going to jump down that route just now. I appreciate the prompt there. Thank you very much. But I'm just going to explore this idea slightly further because I'm curious about what people think about this, right? I don't think you have to be an expert on history or politics or economics or percentages or figures or numbers or maths or any of that stuff. That's where we were 100 years ago, right? 80 years ago. No support. You got in trouble. You're on your own. You basically worked till you dropped. And if you were lucky, somebody would take you in. And if you were lucky and you were taken in, you could keep going until you pretty much keeled over. And then this sort of pension comes in, we'll try and look after you. And the healthcare comes in, we'll try and look after you. And even if you go back 50 years, all right? So comfortably in my lifetime, I remember as a child, 50 years ago, we have a very different vibe in the country then. And by the way, this isn't an old bloke saying everything was better in the olden days. Lots wasn't. I'm just kind of sharing with you. It's a Sunday ramble, right? So I'm open to your questions, your comments, your observations. If you're on YouTube, if you're on Facebook, drop your questions, comments, observations in. Likewise, if you are in, if you're on Insta, please do drop your thoughts and your messages on this. So that's where we were. It is a ruddy mess, says Diane. So ruddy mess. So then we get to a point, and we go some years to 50 years ago. I remember. I remember everyone smoked, right? I remember driving when driving with a seatbelt was first made a law. I remember as a child, if I was in the back seat of my parents' car, there was no seatbelt, right? There was nothing. People could smoke, they could drink, they could do what they wanted. Now, again, to remind you, I'm not saying in the olden days was better. I am simply saying that's what it was. Where we appear to have arrived somewhere between 50 years ago and today is now people seem loath to take personal responsibility. People seem far less comfortable with, well, actually, you did that. That's a kind of a thing that you've done, and you've now got to kind of dig your way out of it. It's great, I think, that we have more support. I genuinely think that's lovely. I think it's a really nice place for us to be. But I also, oh no, God, sorry. Oh God, no, it's a bit heavy going, isn't it? Yeah, that's breaking news. So, oh, bloody hell, I'm come back. Sorry, I just thought, it's not much, is it? Yeah, kind of wish I hadn't done those, really. Why have I got that? There goes that. I think that's where we are, isn't it? There we go. All right, fine. So we seem to have arrived in a place. I'll leave the tech alone. We seem to have arrived in a place where people are increasingly not happy to take responsibility for what they did. When I was at school, and I am going back 40 years now, right? When I was at school, I remember if one of the hard kids did something stupid at break, the entire year group would be summoned to the big hall, and the year head would say, right, we know it was this group or this class or one of these classes, whatever, who did it. Nobody would stick their hand up. And then the teacher would say, right, I'm expecting whoever it was to come and see me by the end of the day. And they always did. Right? Even though they were kids, they had done something stupid. There was no CCTV. There was no phones. Nobody could prove they did it, but they fessed up. And there was a tipping balance somewhere between mid-80s and now, 40 years. There's a point where it's changed. Now, 40 years ago, no, more than that, 50 years ago, as a child, I remember sitting for hours in the local surgery when there's a problem, right? They haven't improved that. That's as rubbish as it ever was. But I think probably getting an appointment was easier. You could speak to the receptionist, you could ask. But something changed in the last 40 years. It went from actually, we'll try and do this, we'll try and fix this, to it's nothing to do with me. CM Hodgson, hi. One of the big issues is people being led to believe the world owes them a living. There needs to be a good, helpful, caring country that needs not be taken advantage of. You see, this. I think this is a very true point, and I think there is now. I think there is a tendency for some people, and again, just to say, if you've just joined us on this Sunday service live, just to say, I'm not arguing that back in the olden days was better. I'm not saying that remotely. I think there's loads now that's way better than it was when I was a child, right? But there feels like something has tweaked, and it feels like something is not right. And I think that is linked with this idea of personal responsibility. It would seem to me self-evident that if you want something, you have to do it. You have to kind of get on with it. You have to try and achieve it yourself. It would seem to me self-evident that if things aren't how you want, you need to do what you can to sort that out. If you've done something wrong, you kind of have to be responsible. But as a country, we have moved more and more to an inverse of how we were brought up. I was brought up, if you were late, if you forgot your homework, if you did your homework too badly, if you pissed about at school, which you generally didn't, if you missed school, which again you generally didn't, if those things happened, then you got detention. And if you got detention, your parents would back the teachers. I remember, because when I was at school, the cane was still a thing. The slipper was still a thing. And again, I don't think that was good. I really don't think that was good. I have more respect to the older days. I'm not arguing that, right? Something changed. We had teachers who bullied in those days. Not good. We had teachers who were really shit. We still do today, right? But the balance of, it's not even power, the balance of expectation and the balance of reciprocal give and take to us, any social situation has changed completely. And I would like to see that we as citizens are trusted more by the state. I want to see a smaller state. I want us to be able to do what we should be able to do and the right thing. You know, when people are in difficult situations, when people are stressed and struggling, often good stuff happens between normal everyday people. But the state keeps meddling, and state is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it is taking control, it's taking money, it's demanding more and more from each of us, and it is not it's not letting people give in a natural way. It's very natural now. You go into any town, you will see council employees dressed kind of like paramilitary security guards. They lack the guns, but they've got all the rest of the kit. And on the back of their high vis, it will say parking enforcement. The word enforcement related to parking between two white lines is too strong. It's the wrong choice of word, and it sends the wrong message. And words do matter. Language matters. The words that we choose are semantically packed. That means they have meaning. And when we say to people, this is parking enforcement. What it sets up is a flashback to when you were a child. It's us against them. It's the authorities. Even the use of the word authorities, it's a clumsy word. When somebody who works in a council, and again, I'm not being derogatory to wherever you work or whatever you do, right? But when somebody works at the council refers to the general public, so well, that's you, mate. That's you. You do parking. Nothing wrong with that. I'm not being dismissive. A job's a job, right? Seriously, I've done some of the worst jobs ever, right? So a job's a job. But parking enforcement sets up the wrong expectation. It sets up the wrong balance of power. It's like refuse compliance. The words compliance and the words enforcement are not appropriate for most interactions that we have with the state. Now, border force, if only, that's the right place that we should have a strong title. Like, we want the army and the navy and the air force, people who have actual guns and bombs and do the difficult stuff, right? That's them. They should have those kind of phrases and language because that's what they do, right? And we're all very grateful for those people. Me being me, everything to do with religion, which should be abolished, that'll make the world far better. The vast majority of the problems in the world are because of religion. There certainly seems to be a problem. That said, there are many religions that, we might argue a spiritual side to things, whatever your beliefs and opinions are, we might argue that's okay. You can believe whatever you want to believe. Perhaps when that religious side or that spiritual side links into the state, into politics, that's when we might see some difficulties. Let me pick up some more messages here. Platt Matt, big state and big government following a communist regime as dictated by the WEF. Yeah, that's a very common discussion at the moment, isn't it? Me being me, I believe more money should be put towards helping the homeless and veterans, but we never have, which is why I've never believed in UK governments. Yeah, you see, this is the point. I'll come to that in a second, if I may, me being me. By the way, listen, if you're enjoying this live, my Sunday service here, if you're on YouTube, Facebook, or Insta, if you're enjoying this and you're not following me, please consider following me right now. And also consider sending me, whether it is stars or ticks or love hearts, whatever's possible on your platform. I would very much appreciate that. Particularly if you are on Facebook, actually, I would really appreciate, I don't know what a star costs. I believe there's a charge for such things, but I would really appreciate it if you would send me a star, because that's the last thing I need to tick off in my menu of achievements on Facebook. I'd really appreciate that. Thank you. Let me get back to what I was just saying. So we have this situation now, and everything's inverted. We have people who have grown through school and haven't learnt the basics of respect for the teacher, for the system. And I think, going to school in uniform, it's a difficult one, isn't it? On the one hand, is that a mirror of future career and life? Well, increasingly not. Working the school hours, is that increasingly like going to a place of work? Again, increasingly not. It probably needs an update and an upgrade. But to me, we ought to be doing in schools, we ought to be teaching, we're going from childhood to young adulthood, right? We ought to be teaching young children, or children when they first go into school, through the school system, we ought to be teaching them to be good citizens. I don't know what does good citizens mean. It's a basic respect, right? It's a basic understanding of each other. It's a basic, okay, I get your opinion might be different from my opinion, and that's great that we have different opinions. But yeah, it doesn't mean a fight or a argument breaks out. And that also includes a degree of, okay, so at the school, we're going to ask you to do this. That's kind of the school rules. We want you to do that. What we don't want is the parents then to come bowling in saying, I demand this and I demand this and I demand this. It's not fair. You can't tell my child this and this. Well, we ought to allow that. We ought to not be indulging that, because if you learn how to be a decent citizen, a decent human being at school, Then I kind of feel it's better as you get older, then you learn to break the rules a little bit. All right. So I know I shouldn't smoke, for example, and I learned that as I grow up, as a child, as whatever's around me. As an adult, if that is something you decide to do, do it. By the way, kids don't do it, but if that's what you decide to do, that's what you decide to do. Or if you decide that you believe in whatever style of politics or whatever your worldview is, those things are okay once you've learnt the basics. So the basics have got to be about a decent level of respect for everybody around you. There's got to be a basic level of the state will do this, and in return, I will do that. But that has to be a two-side thing. Thank you, Helen. That has to be a two-side thing. And when I say it has to be a two-side thing, what I mean at the moment is that we have far too much of a pushy, bossy state. We have a state that is too centralized. We have a state that is too obsessed with being in charge. We have a state that expects compliance. And those words again, compliance and enforcement, are completely wrong in parking, in local council, in getting rid of your rubbish. You have to organise a street party. I did in 1977, right, when there was the Silver Jubilee. Everywhere up and down the country had these street parties, and people just had these little parties, right? They were a bit naff, and they were great fun, and they were whatever they were. Nowadays, you got to get some pointless process and apply for a license, and it all feels like it is badly balanced. Gregory, on YouTube, I feel the UK is drifting towards overbearing government intervention. Yes, so the state increasingly regulates everyday life through surveillance, strict administrative rules. That's why I left the UK. Gregory, I think that's absolutely right. That's kind of what I'm digging at. That's kind of where I'm going with all of this. I feel like we've inverted everything. I feel that when I grew up, we kind of learnt this is the state, right, which was school. We learnt that there's authority. We learnt that police officers are generally kind of okay, but don't be a dick, and it was a balance. The doctor you would listen to, you would never miss an appointment. There was a balance with all of these things, and I feel we've lost that somewhere in the last 40 years. And I feel that we have told younger people, you can do whatever you want, however you want, whenever you want. You can literally do what you want. And then you get to adulthood, and actually, no, you can't, because when you get on planes, if you get pissed up and start a fight, you're still going to be frog marched off. If you don't pay your taxes, you're still going to get fined or arrested. If you drive too fast, you're going to get a ticket. If you park in the wrong way, you're going to get a ticket. We seem to have misappropriated the whole process. So children don't learn to be adult, don't learn sort of a degree of respect and give and take. And at the same time, the government, as Gregory says there on YouTube, has become more and more and more bearing down on us. The state has got bigger. It's demanded more powers for itself. Everything you do, you have to spend money on. There's a fine for everything. There's a cost for everything. Services that the council would do as part of council services are increasingly reduced and charged for. I pay £5,500 a year for my council tax. And if the current rumours are going around, I might be paying £11,000 to £12,000 a year next year. Right? So we've got everything the wrong way around. If you've got 5 people in a small house, they are probably using more council expenses and costs and services than 2 people in a Band H house. But it doesn't matter, right? Because it's a big house. And so that envy thing, and it is propagated, I'm sorry to say, it's propagated by a Labour approach. If you've got this, we're entitled to it. Let's pick up some of your messages. I can see a couple coming through there. We are on the Sunday service, by the way, folks. I really appreciate you being here. We've got YouTube, Facebook, and Insta. If you want to send me some digital thank yous, cheers, hearts. If you're on Facebook, I think you can send me stars, and I'd really like it if you did send me a star, for the sole reason that is one of my tasks, to be able to earn a star. And I'd really like to be able to do that. That would be great. Let me pick up some of your messages, folks. I believe more money should be yes. See, that's another thing as well. The big more money for homeless. Me being me said that. You're absolutely right, because we, right at the start of this, I was talking about Robert Tressel and the ragged trousered philanthropist. We support people that really don't need a lot of support, and we do very little for people that have earned that support. We should not be talking about reducing pensions or means testing pensions. If you have paid taxes for a period of time, you've got to an agreed age, then that's the money should be paid. And the fact that successive governments have messed that up, and instead of setting up a pension pot, a national insurance pot, instead have just used it as a giant Ponzi scheme to pay the current lot, is ridiculous. But we could start to fix that today for newborns, for kids. So in 60 years' time, 70 years' time, they could benefit from their own plan. And then we could start to dig our way out of this. We're in a ridiculous situation. Council tax rises, you can't switch provider, it just happens. Correct. You can't challenge it because you're challenging the recipients, says Mike Locke. Thank you. Like your point on debt collection enforcement. Yeah, absolutely. And also, you know, as it's been discussed often, council tax is a particularly virulently aggressive collection when you don't pay. But we've also got people on platforms right now, right, like this platform, who sell templates to get out of council tax, which, by the way, doesn't work. It might work for a short while, but it still fucks you over. It's going to mess you up. Gregory, the challenge is to comprehend what it's all going to be like in another 10 years. It's going to be grim. Yeah, I mean, I'm generally an optimist, but I think we are struggling because we have not taught people to work in a reasonable way as they are growing up. So as they become adults, they think they can do what they like, and that's when the state then doubles down. Can you imagine, right, all the footage you've seen on whatever your favorite channel is, all the footage you've seen of people arguing on a plane seat that they have to leave, arguing that they will not leave, then the plane being emptied, then them being carried out, then everybody getting back on the plane, right? Several hours delay. I cannot imagine when that started to become a thing. That would have been so rare. How people think that's an acceptable way to go through life. That footage I see on this platform all the time, of like sovereign citizen nutters asking police what's the grounds for the stop, or why did they stop them. They're travelling, not driving. It's a conveyance, not a car. I mean, clearly, sometimes police overreach is a problem, right? It's got to be challenged. There are bad officers. Of course there are. It's bad people in every walk of life, and bad officers are particularly dangerous because of what they can do and the access and power they have. We all accept that. We all know that. But the answer to that is not these woefully stupid people just arguing nonsense. Gregory, by the way, on the subject of council tax, ours is €400 per year in France. So I'm currently paying, well, I'm paying more than £400 per month. Now, I do have a very big house, but 5.5 grand, and I don't make use of council services. Now, the argument is always, yes, you do. Everyone does. What about the roads? What about the ambulances? Yeah, but we all have access to those. My point would be the opt-in services, I don't make use of any of those. And I pay 5.5 grand. And if the current socialists in number 10 get their way, and the kind of rumours going around now, that could be 10 grand, 11 grand, 12 grand. How does that become payable? Mike, one rule on private companies under the FCA when it comes to the government collecting their own debts. Exactly right. It's a nonsense. And, you know, I don't like paying my taxes. When people say to you they're proud of paying their taxes, I mean, I smell bullshit, as I'm sure you do. I am not. I hate paying my taxes. I pay way too much money. It's not a flex. It's just true. I pay too much money, and anyone who pays tax, right, which is, even if you're very low paid, if you don't even earn the basic 12,570 per year, if you're a very low paid worker, you're still paying shed loads of tax, right? With all the things you buy, all of the services you use, all of the utility, everything, you are paying massive amounts of tax. So it doesn't matter whether you're a very low earner or let's say up to 150 grand. I appreciate there are people who earn on PAYE above that, and I appreciate there are the mega millionaires, the billionaires, which again, wanky socialists. I'm sorry, I've been trying to say this non-politically today. They always gravitate towards, yeah, but those millionaires. Yes, we know. We all know. We every single one of us knows. We know they pay less than you, and you've never worked a day in your life, sort of socialists. We know that, but they're a separate thing we need to solve. If we look at people in this country earning between 0 and 150 grand, the tax burden falls unduly on people who earn. It's not reasonable and it isn't fair, and you don't get anything for it. There's no decent return for it. So we need to get a balance on that. By the way, just a quick one, checking with you. If you are enjoying this live, please do take a moment to send me some ticks and some love hearts. And if you're on Facebook, send me some stars. That would be appreciated. Even 1 star would mean a lot for me. Let's get back to what we're saying. Viva la vida. English teachers need help. England's teachers need help. I've met young teachers who've been complaining about difficulties to live that they have and the percentage of suicide teachers having in the UK. I'm not sure about that percentage that you refer to there, but the problem with being a teacher is we need to properly remunerate what is a decent skill for people who do it well. We have some teachers are astounding. It's not many of them. Some teachers are dog shit. They exist. They existed when I was a kid. They exist today. We need to get rid of them quicker than we do currently. And we don't, because it's the public sector. The public sector isn't very good at dealing with problems. So most teachers are kind of average. Now, many teachers go into teaching wanting to make a difference, but get absolutely pressed down by the way that the teaching infrastructure works. They get pressed down by stroppy kids. The stroppy kids have learned from their parents. If a teacher says we're going to do this and a child doesn't like it and the parent's involved and the parent doesn't back the teacher, that's the wrong place. We've got this the wrong way round. We have everything here the wrong way round. We are teaching people at kids to be dickheads when they get older. We ought to be teaching everyone to have a basic level of kind of here's how you be. It's just normal life. Be respectful, be kind, support other people, be confident for yourself. That's what we ought to be doing. But we're so hell bent on you can do what you want and the state will back you. And then the moment you get to adulthood, you think, great, I can do what I want. State goes, nah, don't think so. So we've got everything the wrong way around. We've taught people not to behave the way we should. Some people could do with reading the Chimp Paradox. Lots of adults allow their monkey minds to make their decisions. Yeah, it's an interesting book, Platmat. If you haven't read it, it's a good read. And I think there is still, I see this all the time with professionals that I work with, there is still a concept that you made me angry or you made me, the way you spoke got me really cross. Well, okay, you said some stuff I didn't like. It doesn't mean I have the right to behave in a certain way. I see this occasionally on the platforms where people comment, where people sometimes comment really quite rude, nasty, quite abusive language. And you think, well, if you don't like this, scroll on to the next one, or put a jokey comment, or even take the piss, or put a brilliant argument down. But I have literally in the last 12 hours blocked 3 people from whichever platform whose opening bid is right. So what in what world was that ever acceptable? At what point in your life did it ever dawn on you that it was okay to complete strangers tell them where to get off? It's bizarre. Platmat, basic finance and economics should be taught in UK schools. Absolutely. Let's pick up some more messages. Mike, council tax should be banned A to Z, not A to H. Yeah. Actually, Mike, it went very badly, but the poll tax was probably a fairer setup because undoubtedly we need to pay for what we use in the local areas, and the local areas need a basic level of income so they can supply all the services they're supposed to supply. But it's a fairly ridiculous. You've got 3 to 4 bed. It's a band G. Yeah, I mean I've got a very big house, Mike, and it's a band H, and they're talking about a surplus, a surcharge for F, G, and H, and I've made this case before. I don't really use council services. I get fortnightly bin collections. Yeah, but you've got a big house, so it's fair that you pay £5,500. If they do the sort of surcharges they're talking about, I might be paying 10 grand or 12 grand. How is that fair? In the general, truest sense of the word. Not fair because somebody's glad they don't have to pay it, but how is it fair that somebody has to pay that? There's no correlation, there's no link between the size of your house and how many services you use. If you live in the really small house in a part of town and there's a lot of you squeezed in there and you're using every council service going, surely, if we're going for fair, your house should be paying more. I think England's history shows everything. Taxes for window explains everything. Nothing surprises me. Yeah, if they do a window tax again, I'm screwed. I can't. I've got so many windows here. I'm absolutely screwed. Listen, let me give everybody a quick nudge here. We've been broadcasting for 37, 38 minutes. I'm going to be bringing this towards a close in the next 4 or 5 minutes. So I will take questions, comments, observations, and I'll bring some of these thoughts to a bit of a close as well. I'll take your final comments as well. So I've been talking today about this idea of what we ought to be doing respect-wise, how we ought to be doing things. And I feel that we have consistently in this country, sometime over the last 40 years, we've got everything the wrong way around. We've taught people they can do what they like as their kids growing up, and then we absolutely batter people when they become adults. We use words like enforcement and we use words like compliance officer, right? There's no balance. And the government of the day, the lot we've got at the moment, are so wedded to the idea of authority, centralization, a bigger state, charging for everything, that it's a really uncomfortable feeling. Where we are in 5 years' time, of course, none of us know. And we might all hope for a better next case. But if we don't pull back away from the situation at the moment, and at the moment, Keir Starmer is all about authority, right? That's all he's about. He's in charge. He wants to be in charge. He likes being in charge. And the Labour Party supports that mission. The whole ID card idea, that's nothing to do with all the various claims they've made about it, and everything to do with we're in charge. What are you going to do about it? So we must move away from an idea where people are punished, frankly, for success. We have a Labour Party that believes it has a plan for growth, and their plan for growth is destroying the economy. If you increase taxes on workers, on hiring workers, companies will hire fewer workers. If you threaten people, make a success of your life and career and business, and then leave, and we want a percentage of it, people will stop coming here. People will think, well, I'll live in England for a bit because I like it, but then I'm going to go to wherever. I don't like it so much, but I'll go there and work for a bit, get my money. I'll become an international jet-setting citizen, and then I'll go and visit England when I want to. But I'll go as a tourist. I won't actually go and live there. That's the problem we've got. Anyway, listen, folks, thank you all for being here on a Sunday service. Lovely to see you all. I hope you have a great rest of the day. If you do have a last chance before you go, send me some likes, send me some thumbs up, send me some love hearts. If you're on Facebook, send me a star or two. That would make a massive... I would appreciate that so much. I'm new to Facebook, and my channel's grown a lot in the last 2 weeks. It's grown from 0 to 3 and a bit thousand. I'd really appreciate that. It would just it would trigger the algorithm in a way that would be very helpful for me. So that would be tremendous. Folks, listen, thank you all.